You will never look at blood sugars or insulin the same way after you listen to this episode. Now, the reason for this is I actually did a special training for our private community. We have a community called the Warriors Tribe Plus. We actually just opened it and closed it back up. Unfortunately, if you're watching this and you're not on the wait list, you missed it. But the good news is I'm going to share a private training I did with them with you today that we don't typically do. So the reason I want to share this is that this single strategy, this method, this approach to type 1 diabetes allowed me to do two things. One, fix a massive problem in my blood sugars, which was before and after meals. And of course, in doing so, fixed my time in range, improved it massively, and lowered my A1C. So just that big difference in my own life that I hope you can take and use in your own life as well. But number two was to bring more calculation to an insulin stacking strategy. Now, generally speaking, insulin stacking is a terrible idea, but using today's strategy, today's new perspective, I do anticipate that you too might see insulin stacking in a new way. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Vandevecht. I'm a certified master fitness trainer, nutritionist, best-selling author, and someone living with type 1 diabetes. So today, I hope you take this and implement it, use it, and enjoy it. It should bring a lot more certainty into your life as mine, and as for a lot of my clients as well. Now, if you've read my book, the strategy for today is expanding on one of the topics called timelines. Today we're going to chat about projected timelines. I'm going to share this training with you. We're going to jump over into it in just a second. If you have not yet got the book, watch this episode first, learn this expansion of the idea, and then go buy the book. It's called The Blood Sugar Freedom Formula, and that'll give you the base understanding of the entire concept as a whole. So they're going to go hand in hand. They're both really helpful. You got to have both if you want to understand the full grasp of this. But either way, they are both helpful independently as well, and I hope you enjoy. Closed out the screen. What's going on, crew? Whew, sorry to yell at you. It's been an exciting day as we're getting back into the swing of things. It has been absolutely chaotic. We just got back from New York City. Lived there for 3 years, many moons ago. And it's like a second home to me. So much fun to bring my daughter there for the first time so she can see where she got her name from. Her name's Brooklyn. And then also my wife, because we used to do long distance dating while I lived out there. And so it was fun just to revisit some old areas that we used to go on dates, and just had a blast. But it was freezing. And traveling with diabetes, actually part of today's topic as well. Traveling is tough, right? I mean, you've got all your supplies, you've got your routines getting thrown off. Typically, you're on somebody else's schedule, so it's hard to know what to plan for, right? But outside of that, you've got time zone differences, different types of foods. You're probably not exercising the same amounts that you usually would. It's a mix of equations, a lot of different timelines going on. So when I look at this, traveling in general, but also day to day outside of travel, there are a few things you can do to set yourself up for success if you know general timelines, right? Now, for those of you who picked up the book, the Blood Sugar Freedom Formula, I've got one right there. There's a chapter dedicated to timelines. Actually, there's two chapters because it is that important. The idea behind it is that blood sugars respond to different variables for different lengths of time. Prime example, if I eat a sandwich right now, it's not going to impact blood sugars forever, but it's also not going to impact blood sugars just for the next 5 minutes, right? It's going to take a couple hours to digest, process, absorb as glucose, and be stored in the liver or muscles or fat, right? So these timelines are important for us to know for planning out our insulin dosing, our activity levels, all that stuff. Now, what I like to look at are projected timelines, and this is not in the book, so you guys get a little special training here. But projected timelines, we talked about this a little bit on my private coaching call last night. And with my private clients, we were going over the runway or the 2-hour gap before any new additional insulin or activity might be on the schedule. So prime example of this, flight to New York, going out there, going out was 5.5, coming back was 6 hours, 15. So not too bad. and Brooklyn did an amazing job. My goodness, we are so lucky. You know, you hear other kids screaming on the plane, and she's just sitting there like, "Look, Daddy, a cloud." I'm like, "Oh, thank God, you're amazing." And she'd be amazing even if she didn't cooperate on the plane. Just saying, throwing that out there. But on the plane, blood sugars can be difficult for a number of reasons. Time zones, as mentioned, food is different. You're probably dehydrated. You can't really get out and go for a walk like our renegade way teaches us, right? Think differently. Get out, go for a walk, bring down high blood sugars. So a lot of factors at play here. But when blood sugars run higher on the plane, like they did for me, I ended up dosing for breakfast. It didn't work out great and ended up a little higher than I would like. I don't want to just give insulin mindlessly, right? Yes, I want to give insulin to bring blood sugars down, especially if it's necessary and I can't really go for walks, right? But I don't want to just do things without considering the second order of consequences. In other words, if I take action A, what is it going to lead to, which is result A, and what is the second thing that might lead to, result B. So action A, take insulin. Result B, blood sugars come down. Result A, blood sugars come down. Result B is that when we land, we have to walk to baggage claim and then to ground transportation. So blood sugars will plummet because I'm going to have insulin on board, right? So I have to consider the multiple layers, the ripple effect, if you will, that this is going to have on the future. And so if I can look forward, my projected timeline, at least 2 hours. Why 2 hours? 2 hours is the window where your insulin is most effective, right? It hits its peak efficacy at 90 minutes, so an hour and a half, and it's done most of its work by around 2 hours. You will still have some residual insulin on board for up to 5 hours, right? But most of it's done in 2 hours. So the reason we look at 2 hours as our projected timeline is that if I need to give a correction, I look out at when is the next expected large dose of insulin, i.e. a meal, and or when is the next level of activity. It might be walking around the city. It might be a workout. It might be, for some of the adults here, intimate settings, right? That's something you don't want to be interrupted by blood sugars. For those who are parents, playing with your kids, you're like, oh, we're going to a trampoline park today in 2 hours. Good to know, right? So insulin and activity, if I've got a full 2 hours before then, I can go crazy with my insulin correction because it's mostly going to be used up by the 2 hour marker, at which point I am delivering more insulin or going into that activity that's planned, right? Now, if it's 30 minutes until that next big dose of insulin, so if it's like 30 minutes until lunch, if it's 30 minutes until I'm supposed to go work out, I treat that situation very differently because now if I were to give a large correction, it's got all that insulin on board that is about to hit me like a train, right? So you have to be ready for that if you want to take that into a part of your decision matrix, right? So what's really important for us to consider as we make these dosing decisions is the projected timeline. If I project our plans out 2 hours, do I have the space to give a full correction here? Or would it make more sense to cut my correction in half, into a third, to not give a correction at all, right? So these are things that you've got to consider because what if in 30 minutes, I'm going for a 3 hour bike ride, right? You guys know I train for Ironman and ultra endurance athletics. So if I'm about to go out for a 3 hour bike ride and my blood sugars are at, let's say 180, but I might not want to take a full correction for that 180 blood sugar. In fact, I might not take any insulin at all because 3 hours of cycling probably going to bring my blood sugars down, right? At least from my own patterns. I know based on my 80-20 blood sugar formula exactly how far it's going to come down, and it's going to come down further than I need it to. I'm going to have to snack on that bike ride. So not only am I not going to be high anymore, it's going to go into a low if I take zero action. So why would I add extra insulin to that equation? I am causing an imbalance in the blood sugar equation by doing that. So if I can project out 2 hours, I get an idea of how aggressive I should be with my insulin dosing. Now on the airplane, that is exactly what I did. I looked at my blood sugars, did not like what I saw, To be honest, I forgot what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was like 200 something. Like it was over 200. I was like, goodness gracious, this sucks. Because what are you going to do? You just got to take insulin and wait. It takes forever to bring high blood sugars down on a plane. So once you miss it, it's kind of gone. I'm coming to terms with the fact that it's going to be up there for a while, right? Unless I start running up and down the aisle on the plane. But I look at our scheduled landing time and I see that it's 2.5 hours out. So my next thought is I can be pretty darn aggressive with this correction. And worst case scenario, I can eat some carbs to offset this because I did still have some insulin on board from breakfast, right? You got to consider that into your blood sugar equations as well. But ultimately looking at what does this current action that I'm going to take have as an impact on the outcomes that are going to come around. So decision A, outcome A, but also outcome B, outcome C, right? Or I said result earlier. Result A, result B, result C. If I take insulin now, it will bring blood sugars down. But then we go for a walk and it will cause me to plummet, right? Or here's another example of result A, result B, result C. I take extra insulin now, go too low from result A. Result B is I have to consume extra calories to bring myself up from that low. And I don't want to because I'm trying to lose weight. So I don't need extra calories, right? So considering the second order of consequences, the third order of consequences, it's an advanced level of thinking. But as you guys know, you can see on my shirt, think differently. This falls under that category, right? We have to think differently with diabetes. It is impossible to manage this beast of a disease well and to thrive with diabetes without thinking differently. So it's required of us that we take these things into account. So when I look at projected timelines, my favorite runway or section of time is 2 hours because the efficacy of insulin doesn't go a lot further than that. And that's the largest chunk of where insulin is going to do most of its work, right? We talked about some more advanced topics on the coaching call last night that were really exciting, new experiments and research that I'm doing with actually a team of type 1s and researchers that we're looking into with, I don't want to ruin any surprises, but I would say keep an eye out on the next couple of months, a few months from now for trainings, and maybe even I'll put something in the newsletter for you guys. But big picture is if I know rough estimate, if there's a large dose of insulin in my future or a large amount of activity in my future, I can map out the aggression behind any corrections that I give for high blood sugars, or also on the flip side of that, the aggression behind any low treatments. If on the plane, I was sitting at 71, right? Technically not low, but I don't love being in the 70s personally. So I would consider having a snack. How much of a snack though? Well, we're landing in 5 minutes. Okay, so I've got some room to actually have 10 carbs, maybe even 15, because we're going to be walking to baggage claim and walking to ground transportation. What if it was 71, stable, no insulin on board, and we had 3 hours left in the flight? Well, I might just have 5 grams of carbs, right? Which based on my GTRs, I know will take me to 91. And so this is stuff we work on in our program, right? Like precision blood sugar control, the math behind it, of course. So I might just want a little bump in my blood sugars, just a little bit, right? Because if I overshoot it into a high blood sugar, now I've created a new problem, the second order of consequences that I'm going to have to dose for, and it just creates a roller coaster effect. So really have to think about how is this going to impact the next outcome as I take this action that allows you to have more stable blood sugars that you can start to predict because of projected timelines. So, let me know if you guys have any questions on that. I hope this is helpful. I know without the context of the discussion that my clients and I were having on our private coaching call, it's a little bit random, I guess is the best way to put it. We were going down a different rabbit hole in that coaching call, but I hope that this chunk of information is still helpful, is still making sense for you guys as you consider the different decisions that you would make with type 1 diabetes management. If we're going to manipulate blood sugars, we need to know what the outcomes look like and the second and third order of consequences so that we're not creating new problems just to solve the current one, right? And that is the big picture behind this is I can solve the current problem with one of two things, insulin or sugar. Yeah, sure. Simple as that, right? If I'm high, take insulin. If I'm low, take sugar. But the amount and the timing, or the volume and timing of those decisions, needs to be something we take into consideration with the context of that decision, right? So if I'm high, should I take more insulin? Yes. How much? A bunch. No. That's going to cause a low, right? We can't, we shouldn't do so blindly. We really need to think about these decisions, especially because insulin lasts for multiple hours. So any decision I take now has a very long lasting impact on the rest of the day, essentially. If you shoot yourself into a blood sugar roller coaster, that sometimes takes half a day or a full day to recuperate from. It's really difficult to rein in the blood sugars once they go off the deep end and they go a bit chaotic and rogue, right? So let me know if you guys have questions on this. If you have comments, I would love to hear them. And, we may even turn this into a deeper training if it's something that you find useful. But this is the kind of stuff that I love thinking about, more of the thinking behind the blood sugars. And, of course, teaching you guys how to think differently about this stuff, to not be one of the diabetic robots that the doctors teach us to be, right? But thinking for ourselves as we manage this beast of a disease. So thanks for hanging around. Love chatting with you guys and sharing little tidbits that I gather from my travels, from my experiences, and from my research and experiments as of more recently. As we head into the new year, we've got some new projects that I cannot wait to share with you guys. They're going to be exclusive to y'all, that we're probably not going to share with the public. It's just for the cool kids inside this community, inside this group. So appreciate you guys, and want to show that to you. Hope you have a great holiday season, and we'll see you guys in the next training. All right. Hope you enjoyed that. Obviously, that was just short, quick bite of what's going on inside the Warriors Tri Plus, and some new concepts, some ways that allow us to think differently with our diabetes. Right? It's not just give insulin for high blood sugars and eat sugar for lows. There's a lot more nuances and complexity behind the doors of type 1 diabetes. And the more we understand about it, the more we're able to control it intentionally, and not just by accident. So I hope you found this one helpful. Again, if you don't have the book yet, it goes a lot deeper into these concepts and more that allow you to simplify your blood sugar so you can actually have freedom with your life. Hence the title, The Blood Sugar Freedom Formula. So go grab that on Amazon right now, and we'll see you next week in the episodes. Have a great rest of your day, and keep up the fight.